Welcome to Timeless Memories. I'm Sarah. This channel is a special place where we honor remarkable lives that continue to be remembered with love and admiration. Here, we reflect on unforgettable figures from film, music, television, and culture, celebrating their journey, their impact, and the legacy they left behind. Every tribute we share keeps their memory alive and forever meaningful. Actor Marie-Claire Costello passed away in New York City at the age of 90, marking the end of a long and steady career across television, film, theater, and education. Known for her grounded and emotionally truthful performances, she built a reputation as a committed character actress who prioritized craft over celebrity. Trained at the Actors Studio in New York City, she developed a method-based approach to acting that emphasized realism, emotional depth, and careful character work, which informed her performances throughout her career. She became widely recognized for her role as Rosemary Hunter Fordwick in The Waltons, where her portrayal added warmth and sincerity to the series' family-centered storytelling. She also appeared in The Fitzpatricks, as well as guest roles in series such as Murder, She Wrote and Chicago Hope, further demonstrating her versatility on television. In film, she contributed memorable performances in projects including Let's Scare Jessica to Death, Ordinary People, and Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Married to actor Alan Arbus, she largely maintained a private personal life. In her later years, she devoted herself to teaching acting, mentoring students at institutions such as Loyola Marymount University. Her legacy endures through her disciplined artistry and lasting contributions to screen and stage performance. The world of music is honoring the remarkable life of Chip Taylor, who passed away at the age of 86 after leaving an unforgettable mark on popular music through his timeless songwriting. Although his name was often behind the scenes, his work reached millions through songs that became part of music history. Taylor was the writer behind the legendary hit Wild Thing, famously performed by the Troggs, a track that captured the rebellious energy of an entire generation. He also wrote Angel of the Morning, later made widely famous through Juice Newton, and her emotional recording that continues to resonate with listeners decades later. Beyond writing hits for other artists, Taylor built a deeply respected career of his own, creating heartfelt songs like Early Sunday Morning and Big River, which reflected his emotional honesty and unique storytelling style. Born James Wesley Voigt, he was also the younger brother of John Voigt, though his own artistic legacy stood proudly on its own. Chip Taylor's music will continue living through the melodies, memories, and emotions he shared with generations of listeners around the world. 20 years ago, the world lost one of country music's most unforgettable voices, Buck Owens. More than just a singer, he was an artist who brought real emotion and honesty into every song he performed. His music spoke to everyday people, telling stories of love, heartbreak, hope, and life in a way that felt genuine and relatable. With an incredible run of hit songs like Act Naturally and I've Got a Tiger by the Tail, Owens helped shape the Bakersfield sound and left a lasting mark on country music history. Fans admired the simplicity and authenticity in his voice, something that made his music timeless. Beyond the stage, many remember him warmly as the cheerful and humorous co-host of Hee Haw, where he brought laughter into homes across America for years. He had a rare ability to make people feel connected, whether through a heartfelt lyric or a light-hearted joke. Even decades after his passing, Buck Owens' influence continues to live on through the artists he inspired and the fans who still cherish his songs. His legacy remains strong in every melody, every memory, and every heart he touched along the way. Sir Anthony Leet will be remembered not only as a remarkable scientist, but also as a teacher whose passion for knowledge inspired countless people around the world. His groundbreaking work in superconductivity and superfluidity changed the way scientists understand matter and the hidden laws of the universe. Through years of dedication, curiosity, and deep thinking, he helped open new paths in modern physics, earning global respect and the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2003. Yet beyond the awards and recognition, those who knew him often spoke about his humility, kindness, and love for learning. As a professor at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, he spent decades guiding students, encouraging young minds to ask questions and think beyond limits. He believed science was not only about discovery, but also about sharing knowledge and helping others grow. Even outside the classroom, his calm presence and thoughtful words left a lasting impression on colleagues and friends. His life reminds us that true greatness is not only measured by achievements, but also by the impact we leave on people around us. Though he is no longer here, his ideas, teachings, and inspiration will continue to live on through future generations of scientists and dreamers. Alan Osman's life was far more than a story of music and fame. As the eldest member of the Osmans, he became part of a legacy that reached millions around the world, but the true beauty of his journey was found in the way he lived each day. For nearly 4 decades, Alan quietly faced multiple sclerosis with courage, patience, and grace. Life slowly changed the things he could do, yet it never changed the kindness he carried within him. Instead of allowing hardship to define him, he chose to grow through it. He continued to encourage others with warmth, wisdom, and compassion, proving that strength is not always loud. Sometimes, it is the gentle ability to keep going with hope in your heart. Alan also believed deeply in family, faith, and helping people whenever he could. Whether through music, conversations, or simple acts of care, he made people feel valued and supported. His story reminds us that a meaningful life is not measured by success alone, but by the love we share, the lives we touch, and the courage we show during difficult times. Steve Harvey's story begins in a place where dreams feel unnecessary and survival feels automatic. He was a boy with a sharp imagination, trapped inside a body that could not always express what his mind already understood. Speaking did not come easily, so listening became his strength, and observation became his education. He studied people instead of competing with them, noticing tone, rhythm, and emotion in ways most children never think about. That quiet awareness slowly became the foundation of his confidence, even when confidence itself seemed far away. Life around him offered limited expectations, but his thoughts kept reaching beyond those limits, building a private belief that his circumstances did not define his destination. Every challenge he faced added weight to that belief instead of weakening it. Even when he was misunderstood or overlooked, he developed an internal world where he was already more than what others saw. That internal world became his refuge and his training ground. Long before fame or opportunity appeared, he was already practicing how to survive attention, how to earn respect, and how to turn struggle into motivation that would later define his journey in ways that would change everything he later became forever. Roots in West Virginia and the discipline of hard living, he was born into a world shaped by coal dust, hard labor, and quiet endurance, where every day demanded effort before reward was ever considered. His father worked in the mines, returning home exhausted but steady, carrying the kind of discipline that leaves little room for excuses. His mother balanced that hardness with warmth, faith, and emotional grounding that gave the household a sense of hope, even when money was scarce. Together they created a foundation built not on comfort, but on persistence. In that environment, Steve learned early that life does not hand out permission slips for success. It only responds to consistency. He watched adults around him push through physical strain and emotional fatigue without complaint, absorbing the unspoken rule that survival requires showing up, no matter how difficult the day becomes. These lessons shaped his understanding of responsibility long before he understood ambition. Even as a child, he could sense that the world outside his home was equally unforgiving, but he also began to believe that discipline might be the one tool capable of breaking cycles. That belief stayed with him, quietly forming the backbone of everything he would later attempt. The classroom that tried to shrink a dream school was supposed to be a place of possibility, but for him, it often felt like a stage where his limitations were put on display. His speech struggles made simple participation feel like a test he was always at risk of failing in front of others. Children can be cruel without understanding the weight of their laughter, and he learned early how quickly embarrassment can become memory. The moment that stayed with him most came when he was asked to write about his future. While others chose practical paths, he wrote something far more uncertain, something that required belief rather than certainty. Instead of encouragement, he was met with doubt and ridicule that echoed far beyond the classroom. That experience could have closed him off permanently, but instead it planted something deeper. He did not rewrite his dream, he protected it privately. At home, his father responded not with dismissal but with quiet reinforcement, reminding him that dreams only die when they are surrendered. That contrast between discouragement outside and resilience inside created a tension that would define his mindset for years. He began to understand that validation rarely arrives early, and sometimes belief must survive long before it is rewarded. Years of drift and the weight of ordinary survival adulthood did not immediately bring direction, only a series of temporary roles that kept him moving but not advancing. He tried different jobs, each one teaching him something about routine, pressure, and the limits of work that lacks meaning. There were moments of stability, but none that felt aligned with who he believed he could become. Responsibilities grew heavier as family life added urgency to his decisions, forcing him to balance ambition with obligation. That balance rarely held steady. He was often caught between providing what was necessary and chasing something that felt undefined but unavoidable. The tension created frustration, but also clarity. He began to notice that even when he succeeded in conventional roles, fulfillment remained absent. That realization became important later, but at the time it felt like restlessness. Friends saw humor and charisma, but not direction. He could make people laugh in everyday spaces, yet laughter alone did not seem like a career path. Still, those small moments of connection hinted at something larger. Beneath the uncertainty, there was a growing awareness that his voice, even imperfect, had the ability to move people, if only he could find the right place for it to exist. The night comedy became a door instead of a joke. Stand Up did not arrive as a planned career move, but as a suggestion that felt almost accidental. The idea of stepping onto a stage without certainty terrified him, yet something about it also felt familiar, as if all his years of observation had been preparation for that moment. The first time he held a microphone, nothing about his life guaranteed success, but something about the experience felt right in a way nothing else had. He was no longer just speaking, he was connecting, shaping reactions in real time, learning how timing and truth could transform nervous energy into laughter. Each small success on stage became proof that his voice could exist without hesitation. The early wins were not glamorous, but they were meaningful. They revealed a version of himself that had been waiting quietly beneath years of uncertainty. Still, the decision to pursue comedy seriously came with consequences. Stability became fragile, income became unpredictable, and relationships began to feel the strain of uncertainty. Choosing the stage meant stepping away from security, and that choice marked the beginning of a life defined by risk, persistence, and an unwavering belief that laughter could eventually become something greater than survival. Years inside a car, and the price of refusing to quit. The transition from hopeful performer to struggling comedian was not gradual, it was brutal and immediate. Financial stability disappeared faster than it could be replaced, and what followed was a period of extreme uncertainty that reshaped every part of his daily existence. There were nights without shelter, days measured by how far money could stretch, and long stretches where exhaustion became normal. Living out of a car was not a metaphor for struggle, it was literal survival under constant pressure. Yet even in those conditions, he continued performing. He would drive long distances for small opportunities, perform as if nothing in his life was unstable, and then return to solitude where silence replaced applause. That contrast between public confidence and private hardship created a psychological weight few could endure. But quitting never fully entered his thinking as an option, because the alternative felt like erasing everything he had begun to build internally. Instead, he treated hardship as part of the process, not a sign of failure. Over time, that endurance shaped his voice, making it sharper, more grounded, and deeply aware of the audience's struggles, because he was still living them himself. The breakthrough at the Apollo, and the first real stage opportunity, arrived in a form that demanded absolute presence, not hesitation. The stage he stepped onto was known for its intensity, where audiences could shift from silence to approval or rejection in seconds. There was no room for uncertainty, only performance under pressure. When he finally earned the chance to host, it marked a shift from participant to leader of the room. The energy of the crowd, the unpredictability of the environment, and the need to command attention forced him to refine every instinct he had developed. Instead of simply performing jokes, he learned how to control atmosphere, how to direct emotion, and how to sustain engagement across entire rooms. That ability transformed him from a struggling comic into a recognizable presence. The stage became more than a platform, it became proof that persistence had value. Each appearance reinforced the idea that survival had not been random, but necessary preparation. What once felt like humiliation now became foundation. The same voice that once struggled to be heard was now responsible for holding attention in one of the most demanding environments in entertainment. From sitcom success to the power of reinvention, television's success expanded his reach far beyond live performance, introducing him to audiences who had never seen him on stage. The sitcom era brought stability, recognition, and a new kind of pressure that came with visibility. Fame created opportunity, but also expectation, and maintaining relevance required more than repetition of past success. When one chapter ended, he did not retreat, he shifted direction. Radio became a new platform where conversation replaced scripted performance, allowing him to connect in a more direct and personal way. That format revealed something important. Audiences were not only responding to humor, but to perspective. This realization led to writing, where his experiences were transformed into advice that resonated widely. The success of his book expanded his identity beyond entertainment, positioning him as someone whose life lessons carried weight. Each reinvention was not a departure from the past, but an expansion of it. He was no longer confined to a single medium or identity. Instead, he became a figure who could move between platforms while maintaining a consistent voice shaped by experience, failure, and persistence, building an empire while staying close to the past. As opportunities multiplied, so did responsibility. Television hosting, radio broadcasting, writing, and public appearances created a demanding schedule that required constant energy and focus. Yet beneath the surface of success, the memory of earlier struggle remained present. It influenced how he worked, how he spoke, and how he viewed opportunity. Success did not erase the past, it contextualized it. There was pressure to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing media landscape, where attention shifted quickly and competition grew constantly. Mistakes became more visible, and expectations became heavier. Still, he adapted by leaning into authenticity rather than perfection. His willingness to be direct, even imperfect, became part of his appeal. He understood that audiences connected not with polished distance, but with relatable truth. That understanding helped sustain his presence even as trends changed. The empire he built was not just about visibility, it was about consistency over decades, shaped by the same resilience that carried him through earlier hardship. the legacy of a man who refused to stay small. Beyond the stages, cameras, and headlines, what remains most striking about his journey is not fame itself, but endurance shaped into identity. His life became an example of what happens when persistence outlives doubt, and when repetition of effort eventually compounds into transformation. The early struggles did not disappear. They became reference points that influenced every decision made later in life. Even at the peak of success, there is a sense that he carried those earlier versions of himself into every room he entered, not as a burden, but as grounding truth. That connection to hardship is what gave his public voice its weight. People did not simply hear entertainment, they heard lived experience translated into perspective. Over time, his influence extended beyond comedy or television into broader cultural conversations about resilience, relationships, and ambition. What makes his journey compelling is not the idea of perfection, but the visible evolution from uncertainty to command of space and voice. It reflects how identity is not fixed at birth or limited by early conditions, but shaped continuously through persistence, failure, adaptation, and refusal to stop moving forward, even when outcomes are unclear or delayed. The closing reflection of a life built through persistence. Looking at the full arc of his journey reveals a pattern defined less by sudden success and more by sustained endurance. Each stage of his life added a layer to his identity, from silence to expression, from struggle to visibility, from uncertainty to influence. Nothing about his rise was linear, and nothing about it was guaranteed. What remained constant was the refusal to stop moving forward, even when progress was unclear. The early years of struggle were not erased by fame. They became part of the narrative that gave meaning to it. His story reflects the idea that success is rarely a single moment, but a long accumulation of decisions made under pressure. Even at the height of recognition, the foundation of his identity remains rooted in those earlier years when nothing was certain. The journey demonstrates how persistence can reshape outcomes that once seemed fixed, and how belief, even when unsupported, can eventually create its own validation through time, effort, and endurance carried across an entire lifetime.